Okay, so today I'm going a bit out of my comfort zone, or at least in what I normally talk about, and I'm going to be discussing an anime. Now, if you guys couldn't tell, I've seen a few animes in my time. Probably one of my biggest ones was Pokemon. I also saw Inuyasha, so that's something. But this one's one of the way more recent ones, as it's just recently come out, and there are some things to talk about. So let's do that. So the show's overall story is about a astronaut who has now come back to Earth after being gone for 10 years, and for some odd reason nobody wants to know what happened to him. He just says there were aliens. Aliens took me, and everyone just goes along with it. I don't know. I guess that does seem rational. An astronaut comes back to Earth after 10 years and says, aliens took me! Yeah, I guess that sounds kind of rational if you don't think about it. So, yeah, some pesky kids just decide to look in on what's happening because they want to, I guess, and they eventually break out this astronaut. I don't know. I guess that'd be the logical idea. Like, there's an astronaut, he just landed on Earth after 10 years. Let's break him out. So, yeah, they all break him out. And then all of a sudden, they just decide to go looking for some robot. Because they want to, I guess. I don't know. Well, eventually they do find one of the parts of this robot being the blue lion, which goes to one of the kids named Lance. And he just sort of starts flying around in it, as most people would, I guess. And eventually, they end up in space. Things have escalated kind of fast here. And then they go out even further into space and end up on some island and wake up, and they end up on some planet, and they wake up a princess and her butler maybe, or her bodyguard, or someone, and that's about the gist of it. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens. They just wake up these guys and they say, hey, you guys can form a giant robot to defeat this guy who's been taking over planets lately. Do you want to do that? Yeah? Okay, cool. Go do that. Go find your other robots, because it would make too much sense for us to have them all here. So, yeah, they go off and they find the other robots and they fight this king. And that's about the gist of the series. It's pretty much just them fighting this king. And while I will admit there are some interesting things about this show, I do wish that there was more character in it. Now, I will discuss each character, but I really do wish that there was more of it, because it does really feel like there could be some more development with these characters. It feels like there's actually areas for them to develop more. And there are some times where that would happen, and that was kind of nice, but most of the time they just sort of stay to them doing a mission, and then that's it. That's something that I found is really weird about this show, because most of the time with me, I prefer more team episodes of stuff, like with Gargoyles or something. Yeah, I prefer more of the teams, when they work together in an episode, so then it has an equal focus on all the characters. And while the show does have that, it doesn't give you any time to get to know the characters individually. All you get to know is the basics of their character. Lance, he's the reckless one. That's pretty much his character. Hunk's the fat one. Yeah, that's pretty much his whole character, really. The whole entire series, that's his whole character. He's the fat one. And they keep on showing this every time he's on screen. Don't get annoyed by that. They got Shiro, who is the leader. He's probably the most interesting character. I'll discuss why later. And we got Pidge, who's the tech one. And we got Keith, who's the fighter. And that's pretty much it. Really, outside of that, there is no real character. We also have Alora and Coran, who pretty much are the two people that they woke up who have been stasis this whole time for 10,000 years. Seems like an appropriate amount of time. And yeah, I mean, really, they couldn't get an alarm clock. And apparently, they have waken up at this time to find out that all of their species has died, and Alora's father, King Alfor, has been killed. Yeah, so I would say, a pretty happy wake up. So they wake up to that, and for some odd reason, Alora is still princess. Yeah, for one, she doesn't have anything to rule anymore, so how is she a princess of anything? And two, if your father is dead, then you're not a princess, you're a queen. That's how monarchy works, that's how the system works. Get your title. You saying that you're a queen would only make you cooler, so just go and say that you're a freaking queen. You pretty much act like a queen anyway, so just go be a queen. Your whole entire race is dead. It's not like anyone's gonna say you're not the queen. Aside from maybe Coran. I don't know why he would say that, but yeah, you're a queen. Get over your little issue about your father might being alive, which he's not. It's kind of clear that he's not. Then go and take your title. Seriously, this really annoyed me. Why does she call herself a princess if she should be a queen? Her father is dead. It's not even like he's missing or anything. He's dead. They make that very clear on the show by saying that he apparently put his daughter and Coran into these stasis chambers and then went off to finish the fight. A fight that ended up with King Zoran taking over their planet. So it's kind of clear that Alfor died in this battle, but they keep on acting like, no, he could still be alive. Stop living through your delusions and just call yourself a freaking queen. But outside that, her character is actually pretty enjoyable, and I do enjoy some of her story arcs, especially the one with her father, who has apparently put his whole entire memories into the ship that they fly around, which is also a castle. Only in animes can you do this. A castle is a spaceship, and it is awesome. But apparently, her father put all of his memories into their ship. Why he thought this far ahead, I don't know. I also want to know what the heck he was doing all this time. Did he ever think, I could break out my daughter out of that stasis chamber today. Nah, I'm bored. I'm just gonna go try and watch Netflix, I guess. So yeah, he has apparently put his memories into the ship, so he's kind of like the AI system in it. But eventually it does go 2001 on us, and she's gotta kill her dad. That's kind of an engaging story arc, and it does get kind of sad at that point. Unfortunately, that episode also had a much more interesting thing with Shiro, so yeah, I didn't really care when she killed her dad, because I was just thinking, go back to Shiro's story arc. And speaking of him, he's probably the best character out of the 5 Parents, whatever. I don't know, knights, I'll just call them knights. They're pretty much knights. And he's probably the most likable character out of them. But before I discuss them, I do want to discuss the last character of Alora's race, which is Coran. He's kind of a cool character, and sort of reminds me of Alfred Pennywise at some points. But yeah, there are some times when he's an idiot. And they don't sugarcoat this. When he's an idiot, he is a freaking idiot. they really try to bash into your head whenever he's acting dumb or foolishly, then they try and make him do that to the full extent. And yeah, that to me just wasn't a good idea. But outside that, he is kind of a cool character, and again, just remind me of Alfred Pennywise, especially the version on Gotham. That's what he reminds me the most of. So yeah, that's kind of cool, even though I can't really tell if he's the butler or a bodyguard or just a warrior who was saved, or maybe even King Alfor's friend or something who he just decided to save the life of. I don't know, or if he was Alora's guardian. I don't know on this part. It just is something. He's a part of their race, and he was saved. Out of all the other people there, he was the only one saved that wasn't the princess. Or queen, whatever. So, yeah, why they saved him, I don't know. They just wanted to, I guess. So, now let's actually start to talk about the knights. So, the very first one I'll talk about is probably my least favorite, Hunk. He's kind of annoying. His whole entire personality for about half of the season is just him being fat. And as you can guess, that joke gets really old really fast and just makes you beg for them to actually change around his character. Now, luckily this does happen a little bit later when they go to this planet, which he finds these people who are enslaved and starts to get a little bit of a relationship going with one of them, and decides he wants to free them, but eventually has to leave them to be able to help his fellow knights. So yeah, when that happens, he does get more of a character. I just really wish that he had kept it, when after that episode he pretty much goes back to his other ways. Until they go back to the planet, in which case then, boom, his personality is back. Then they leave and it's gone again. I don't know. So yeah, with him, I pretty much just wish that they had kept his personality that he gained more of on that planet to actually stay intact with his character, but it just sort of gets abandoned when they leave the planet. So then after him, the next character that I didn't really like, or out of the Knights, I guess, but still I think did have room for potential, is Keith. Now, one thing about Keith, he's the fighter. That is all. Really. At least with Hunk, we got some more development on him. But with Keith, he's hardly in any of the episodes. Or at least the focus that he does get is just sort of him bickering with Lance. And that's it. Outside of that, we don't get anything else of this character. Outside of he's a fighter, he's kind of stubborn, and he fights with Lance. That is literally all to his character. We don't get anything else from him outside of that. And yeah, this could make him a weaker character than Hunk, but at least I do kind of like his execution. And Hunk's whole entire joke was he was fat, and that got really old really fast. So yeah, I do like Keith a little bit more than him, but still, Keith does sort of have that lack of personality, and that does really annoy me. I do really think there was area for this character to have some development, maybe in that one team building episode that they have, but no, it never really comes in. It's just sort of, he's there. That's it. That is honestly his whole character. And yeah, I really do wish that there was a bit more to him. So then after him, we have Lance, who personally I found to be kind of annoying. Now, Hunk, I would say that at least he had a joke. Lance doesn't really. Granted, sometimes he would get some funny lines, but pretty much the whole time, he's the troublemaker. You would think that there would be a bit more development with this character, seeing as he was the first one to get the lion. But that's pretty much his whole development. Outside of that and him getting knocked into a coma at one point, there's nothing else really to him. It's literally just that. And yeah, most of the time he's just making bad jokes at inappropriate situations. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of him. One thing I can say though is that he is voiced by the same person who voices Finn on Adventure Time, so that was kind of nice. Um, and so yeah, I thought that he was meh. I just do wish that they did a bit more with him to actually get him to break out that character that he was. Because yeah, you can do that. I've seen plenty of shows that have done that. They just didn't take advantage of it and just sort of left him the way he is. And then we have Pidge, or Katie, whichever one you want to call her. One interesting thing with her story arc is that she pretended to be a guy. Weird. Yeah, really. That was some of her story, and it's kind of weird. Though they do give out a good explanation for this, and that her father was apparently one of the people who was taken prisoner by these aliens 10 years ago, along with Shiro. Her father and her brother were both taken, so she pretty much went for years trying to find out what happened to them. And this eventually led her to an academy where she found some information, but they apparently kicked her out because she kept on trying to get top secret information. Yeah, I don't really see why she thought that would work, but I don't know. I guess that she thought they would just leave her alone. And eventually they do kick her off the premises. So she does a quick identity change and decides, well, okay, even though I look nothing like a guy or sound nothing like a guy, I guess everyone will buy into the fact that I'm a guy now. Don't know how that happened. Yeah, really, when we see her when we first saw her, I honestly heard them say that this was a guy, and I was just shocked. I honestly thought that was a girl, and I'm glad I was proven right. So her story arc does make sense as to why she would pretend to be a guy, but one odd thing, when it's revealed to all the other knights, or paladins, okay, that was their name, paladins, okay, let's remember that. I don't know why that took me so long. When it is revealed that she's a girl to all the other paladins, that's when it ends. They never address this ever again. For some reason. I don't really know why even bring it up in the first place if you're not going to address it, but at least it does make sense as to why she would do this. And I do like her personality. That's why she's my second favorite out of the knights. Paladins, whatever. But I do wish, though, that they had kept a bit more of the focus as to why she hid her identity. Really, nobody asked that of her. No one ever asked, hey, why'd you hide your identity like that? No one asked that. It's just, yeah, we all knew that she was a girl. Why we didn't fill her in on this, we don't know. The only person who's shocked was Lance. In which case, is that really a surprise? So, yeah, I do kind of wish that this had at least been asked why she would do that by the other paladins, but I guess they don't care. So, and then after her, we have my favorite of all the paladins, Shiro, who I kept on calling Slade in this series because both the names start off with an S, and Slade is easier for me to remember than Shiro. But yeah, now I do remember his name more, so I'll just keep on calling him Shiro. So, with Shiro's character, he is apparently the leader of the team, because he was in space the longest, I guess, I don't know. And pretty much, yeah, I gotta say it, he's the most interesting. He's been lost in space for 10 years, or at least I think it was 10. It might have been 5 or something, I forgot, but I'm pretty sure it was 10. Even though Katie or none of them have really seemed to age a day, but I don't know, that's what's mainly making me wonder if it was 10, but yeah, anyway, he's come back from being kidnapped by aliens for a very long time. And apparently his memory is very fuzzy on the subject. He doesn't remember a thing about this. And that's pretty much where most of his interesting storylines come in. As we learn more about his past, which hardly ever happens, which really annoyed me because that was the most interesting thing about the show to me, we do get more interest in his character, so I do like seeing how that worked. And I gotta say, his arm is awesome. Really, that is his main weapon, and even though I do wish they used that one little hand weapon thing that all the paladins would use, so that I could at least see what his weapon would be, because they all get their own specific weapon. It's sort of like Steven Universe, they all get one. And I kind of was hoping that his would be like a bow and arrow or something, but they never show it, which kind of annoyed me. But yeah, I still do kind of. But you know what? That's fine because they show his freaking arm, and oh my god, this thing is like a sword. I love it. Seriously, this is some of the coolest fights I've seen on this show. Is with his arm. Sometimes they're even cooler than them in the giant robot suits. It's just awesome. So, again, going back into his character, and not just his arm, he is still a pretty interesting character, and I do like at times how they bring up his past. Now, there are only really 2 episodes that focus in on this, but they make me really curious as to what happened during him being lost. Because one of these episodes, they bring up that he apparently was in a gladiator match like thing, and everyone started calling, and everyone pretty much said that he was the most bloodthirsty out of everyone there. Seriously, I want to know more about that. And though they do bring up as to why he was acting like this, in which he tried to protect Katie's brother from getting stuck into this gladiator match where he would probably die. And yeah, that does make sense, and it was an awesome scene which I rewound a few times to watch because it was so well done. But I do still kind of wish that there had been a bit more of a focus on what exactly happened to him during this time. Granted, at times it does get a pretty good focus, and I do like it when it does. Because every single time they bring this up and what happened to him, it's really interesting and it's really well shot and directed. And it's probably some of the best scenes on the show. Again, I bring back to the gladiator scene, which was really awesome. And there's one episode, again, the episode with King Alfor being shut down, where Shiro is pretty much just talking to one of King Voltron's guards. And Shiro was apparently held prisoner by Voltron for a long time, and he doesn't remember a thing that happened. So this episode kind of brought up something that I thought might have happened, in which was Shiro might have actually worked with King Voltron. And this episode does bring that up a bit, and I want to know, was that true? Because if it was, that would be really interesting, and I would want more focus on that. Because really, that was a very interesting storyline to bring up, and everything with his memory loss and it slightly coming back, I really did like. And they also show his escape a bit, in which I really loved. That was so awesome to see. And I even want to find out how he lost his memory. Seriously, how did that happen? But yeah, this doesn't get brought up that much, as it's only really addressed in 3 episodes, and even then, it's a minor story arc. At least with some of the other characters, we at least got some story arcs. With Shiro, it's pretty much just like bits and pieces of a story arc, and they don't really go that far. It's just like, he remembers how to beat this one monster, cool. Good for him, they win. he remembers how he escaped. Woo! What do you know? And yeah, the most interesting thing to me was that one scene where they bring up that he might have worked for King Voltron, because that would actually be something that he didn't need to learn. If he did need to know that, then yeah, it probably would have just felt like something that they just thought they wanted to bring up because it would have been important. But no, that wasn't something important to the episode. It was just something that they wanted to show as a little hint of what might have happened. And though again, it might have just been the castle playing tricks on them. But I don't know. Why would the castle want to play tricks on him? Like, it's pretty much trying to kill everyone else, but with him, it's just like, hey, I'll mess around with you for a little bit. So, yeah, that kind of makes me think that it might have actually been true what he was saying, and yeah, I want to know about that more. Is that what happened? I want to know. And so, now that we've talked about all the characters, let's talk about the robots. It's pretty cool. Yeah, Voltron is kind of cool to look at, and one thing that I found was really weird about him, though, I got kind of bored whenever they brought him out. Because most of the time, for the first for like the first two episodes, they bring up, like, oh my god, this is so hard to form into. And then after that, it's the easiest thing in the world. I don't know, they train once, and then it's like the easiest thing for them to form, for some reason. But yeah, that's just sort of something that happened that I just wanted to bring up. But the robot's really cool looking, even though I do get kind of bored by some of the fights, as it is just another giant robot fight. And yeah, I've seen quite a lot of those, and yeah, this one doesn't really do that much different. It just kind of feels like Pacific Rim. So yeah, if you like Pacific Rim, chances are you might like this show. It has quite a few similar fights. But yeah, one thing that's really odd about this show is that it does get kind of boring at times. Like, you see this giant robot and everything, and King Voltron, and he has druids and magic and stuff, and they're fighting an intergalactic war, and somehow it's boring. Yeah. Somehow that ended up kind of boring. I don't know why, but it just kind of does. It's a very strange occurrence, but it just feels really boring at times. Although maybe this is just me, as I've seen a lot of giant robot fights and stuff, and yeah, I've seen story arcs and I've seen stories like this, and to me they don't really change it up that much in a way that's different, but there are some moments where they do some different things. Again, I bring back the Shiro's story arc, which again was my favorite story arc of the whole series. But now that we've talked about that, let's talk about the villains. So, the very first one I'm going to bring up is King Voltron. Zolkron, whatever. And again, I wish that there was more of this guy. I find myself saying that a lot about this show, but yeah, I wish that there was more of him, because he was actually a really intimidating villain. We find out at the end of the series, at the end of the season, I don't know if it's the end of the series, it might be, but I don't know. We find out at the end of the season that he was apparently one of the paladins at one point, making me wonder, what, how, when, why? Yeah, I find this really kind of cool that he was one of the paladins and even had his own weapon. And he seemed to be he seemed to be a lot like Keith, as they both have the same type of weapon, that being a sword. They've both been paladins, and those are the only two that fight in that whole entire finale thing. These are the two big battles, is Keith versus King Zoltron, whatever. And Yeah, I do find that as kind of a cool battle, and it is kind of engaging. This is actually a little bit of something that Keith actually does this season. Unfortunately, it was all for nothing, as nothing really is accomplished outside finding out that Voltron was apparently a paladin. And yeah, he is a really intimidating villain. I just wish that they had shown more of him and used him more. Now, granted, again, less. Now, something that I have said before, less is more, but here it just feels like they could have done a little bit more with them. And I don't know, maybe they're trying to save him for the next season if that happens. I don't know if it's been greenlighted, but yeah, I would kind of want to see what else happens with this guy. And then after him, we have Hedger, who I I honestly noticed this during the show, and I couldn't stop bringing this up. Is voiced by Hyena from Gargoyles. Every time I saw Hedger on the show, I just kept on calling her Hyena. Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of Gargoyles, and it's so nice to see that she's still getting work. I mean, really, she does have a very unique voice to her. It kind of has this pitch in it that's very interesting, and she does have a menacing sort of tone to her. So I do like how her voice works. Her voice is a very interesting sounding voice, and one that I don't think a lot of other people have. So that's kind of what makes her a good voice actress, and I am glad to see that she does still get some work. So yeah, I do really like her voice and everything, and this is actually one of the few times I found her really, really intimidating. Seriously, this character was really intimidating, and I was kind of creeped out by her. She plays one of the main druids on the show. Actually, well, she is the main druid. You only really see two druids on the show, so yeah, I guess that makes her the main one. And she's by far one of the creepiest villains on this show. There have been a few other villains that I didn't really find that intimidating, like one of the head guards. He wasn't that engaging. That's like when he's criticizing Shiro. That might have just been the ship. But I do still think that Hedger is probably the coolest sidekick on this show to the villain. Seriously, she is really intimidating. And the way that she keeps herself hidden most of the show is really, really creepy. For most of the time, you just sort of see a bit of her face. And when she does really reveal her face and her appearance and everything, that makes it all the more intimidating. This is probably one of the coolest things that they've done with this show is with Hedger, even though her name's kind of dumb, but yeah, I still did find her really intimidating. There are quite a few moments where you see that she might actually even be using King Zoltron, whatever, to her own needs. And wow, she's honestly using a man who has been around for 10,000 years conquering planets to her own gain. Makes me really wonder what she actually is planning, because they don't really reveal that. Or maybe she's just really loyal, I don't know. Might be it. But I do still find her as one of the creepiest villains on the show, and I do find her as a really cool character. Hyena's voice is even kind of dumbed down and much more serious than she was on Gargoyles, in which she was more used for comedy relief, and her voice did work for that, but wow, her voice when she's trying to be intimidating is really chilling. Seriously, I never thought I would be intimidated by Hyena, but this show found a way. And I gotta say, the use of her magic was really awesome, and it does have a lot of great animation used there. And speaking of the animation on this show, that's pretty good too. And granted, some of the times it does go really anime at times, and yeah, that's kind of weird, because it doesn't really feel like it even should have been an anime, because it just sort of feels like a normal American show, and feels like it could have been done as a normal show, though it is a reboot sort of show, so I don't know. Was the original Voltron show an anime? I don't know. I haven't actually looked into that show, but I don't know. Maybe I will one day, but yeah, the anime feel to it does kind of become very strong at times, but sometimes it's really awesome, and the animation is pretty good on it. They put a lot of detail into the show, like what most animes do, and while granted, I still find some of the facial animation in anime is kind of odd. It does still have its own sort of brand of personality to it, and I do kind of like how they do that. So all around for this show, I think it's okay. Though I do think that it has a lot of potential to be a really great show, but they're just not taking advantage of it. So I would really like to see the show kind of put more of a focus on its characters. Maybe put them in separate story arcs. Like with Lance, I could see him getting a story arc. Keith, I really want to get a story arc with. And Corin, I really want to see a story arc for as well. I want to know a little bit more about his past, what his actual role with King Althor was. And seriously, I do want to know that role. Really, what was it? And I mean, really, they bring up that he was a fighter at one point. So was he a warrior or a soldier, or was he just a butler, or was he Alfred again? I still think that he might have just been Alfred. So yeah, I really want to know. But pretty much this show does have a lot of potential to be something really engaging, and at times it does take advantage of this, again with Shiro's story arc being the main one. But it does feel like they could have put more focus on more of the interesting story arcs and the characters. Like Lance, again, he could get more focus. Keith, I really want to see get more focus because he got hardly any this season. His biggest focus was his fight with King Voltron. And hey, I finally said that name right. And yeah, that was at least kind of a cool fight. But I do still wish that they had put more character into him, so then I would actually be concerned about Keith's well-being. But again, they do some things right. Like, what was the princess's name again? Allura. Now, she is kind of a pretty cool character, and I do like how she is performed. And yeah, she is kind of engaging at times, although again, you're not a princess, Allura, you're a queen. But still, I do at least like her character. Hager is again one of the really great villains of the show, and really does stand out as a really creepy villain. Though again, I haven't seen many animes, so maybe they just so this might just be one of the lackluster anime villains. I don't know. They have then there's Katie, who gets a fair amount of development. I think that they do have another season. They can crack down on her development a little bit more, so then they can give more of a focus to the others, especially Keith and Lance, because really they need more focus. Hunk got a good enough focus this season and was a bit better of a character, though I do wish some of his traits they got on that planet had actually stayed intact with them. But I think they focused on him enough, and next season they could put more focus on other characters, much like Katie. And Shiro is that one character I really want to see more of. I want to know more about his past, and to me it's a really interesting subject, and I want to see more focus on that. So if it does get a season 2, then I really hope that Shiro's past gets more of a focus on. Or maybe even have him confront King Zarkron, whatever, to actually ask him about did he ever work for him. I really want to know this answer. And I want to actually find out what he did if he did work for him. So yeah, this is kind of a cool show. It has some potential, even though it is kind of boring at times. So if there is ever a season 2, I'm probably gonna watch it. But yeah, there are quite a few boring moments in it. The first few episodes are pretty much the worst, but let's just say when Shiro starts talking about his past and about him being a gladiator, that's really when things do sort of pick up more. Like, I think that was in episode 4, so yeah, in episode 4 is pretty much when things pick up. So, I say give this show a watch if anything I said about it sounds interesting to you. But do be warned, there is some pretty boring stuff in it, and there are some things that you probably wouldn't find that engaging. And if you've seen quite a few robot fights, this show pretty much has the same. Though they do have a giant robot with a sword and a blaster cannon, so that's something. And that's pretty much it for it. There's nothing else really to say about it. There's some cool things if you want to see those, and there are some pretty bad things. It just depends as to if you'll give it some slack for the bad things that's done with some of the good things, even though they kind of even out. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.